I was going to tell you a story about a guy whose mother-in-law moves in to his house. And he's totally distraught, right? He can't say anything to his wife, but he's like, this place just suddenly got a whole lot smaller. So he went to one of the village gurus and said, my mother-in-law just moved in and I'm feeling super constricted. I don't know what to do. And the guy said, do you have any chickens? And he said, I do. And he said, I want you to go and get all of the chickens and bring them into the house. He said, okay. So he brought all the chickens in the house and he went back to the guru the next day and he said, what kind of advice is this that you've given me, Mike? Now I have less space. There's chickens all over the place and my mother-in-law's here and I'm going crazy. And he says, do you have any cows? He said, I have 2 cows. And he said, you get those cows and you bring them into the house. So he brought them into the house and same thing again, goes back to the guru and goes, now I have 2 cows and it smells and I've got chickens. I can't even hear myself think. And my mother-in-law is still there and she's complaining about all the animals. And he said, do you have any goats? And he said, I have 3 goats. He said, bring them all in, get your goats, get your chickens, get your cows, get them all in the house. And he did. And he goes back again. He said, look, this is not working. This is just getting worse and worse and worse. And he said, go home. And I'll tell you what I want you to do is I want you to take all the chickens and all the goats and all the cows, and I want you to send them out of the house. He sends them out of the house, and he goes back to the guru the next day, and he says, you solved all my problems. My place is huge. It just feels amazing again. Thank you, And just going through this recent move, it feels like I bring all these boxes and all this chaos and all this life in, and this beautiful, larger place that I moved into suddenly felt smaller until I kicked out all the goats.
I was going to say, you did have some goats?
Oh, man, we had some goats. Oh, boy. But I'm settled. Are you settled?
Settled. I would say congratulations to both of you. Move is a big deal, so glad you're enjoying the new place. We are settled as well. I think we are... very much enjoying the space now. Very much.
I appreciate that. Why do we congratulate people for things? Like when people buy a new car, you say, congratulations. But then it's like, well, I just didn't accomplish anything.
I don't know.
Car.
It's a good question. With housing in Canada, maybe it is an accomplishment. It's hard to find.
Right. I feel like a little bit like when someone says, hey, we just bought a new house. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Jeez.
Like I know what you're about to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that in the next 30 years looking for you? That's
right.
A tough one.
Are you affected by this fluctuating interest rate stuff going on right now?
No. So, I mean, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we bought at the end of last year, so it was a higher rate than we would have if we bought like a couple of years ago or whatever. But the rates that have increased since, no. I mean, we have a fixed, so we are not affected, and that was part of the game plan, I guess. Getting a mortgage is a little bit of a gamble, right? I've learned you just kind of try and, what's it going to be in 2 years and 3 years? And the answer is nobody knows. So you just kind of make a decision and you hope. But no, we're good. And after 3 years, the plan or the hope is that it's going to be lower, coming back down again. Who knows? But no, we luckily, knock on wood, we're not affected.
I know a total of nothing about home ownership and buying a home, but isn't there a thing where after, you can always go to the bank after 4 or 5 years and, reevaluate your agreement or your mortgage? I think, isn't there a thing where you can do that? I know maybe 1% more than you. I don't know too much. There's always a thing. The bank will always give you more money for lots of interest. So I'm sure they'd be happy to have that conversation. But basically, I learned this is different than the States. From what I know about the States, you get a rate, or you have an option to have a rate for the entire amortization period of your mortgage. So 25 years, 30 years, whatever it is. And the rate is, pick a number, 3%, 4%, 5% for the entire 30 years. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it works, or that's an option. Canada, we don't have that. So you have the amortization of 30 years or 25 or 20 or whatever it is that you choose. But your rates get renewed every term, and they usually can be 1 year, they can be 3 years, they can be 5. Oh,
And after those intervals, technically, so for example, we have a 3-year term. So technically, the entire mortgage, we are supposed to pay it back to them after 3 years.
okay.
But nobody does that. Like, that's impossible with how everything works now.
Yeah.
So at that time, it's all just whatever it is. But they say, okay, well, you didn't pay it all back. No worries. Let's renegotiate. We'll make a new deal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But basically, you just renegotiate for another 3 years or 5 years at the rate that exists at that time. And then you go along until it's all paid off, 25 or 30
Right.
years later.
It's confounding to me. I think I'm just probably, I don't know at 48 if I'm ever going to be a homeowner. Like, I think I'd like to, but the issue has always been for me, I'm going through this sort of, again, existential living crisis where I'm feeling like, as you know, we just spent a week out in Vancouver and it was quite nice. I think to myself, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to live somewhere like that for 3, 4, 5 months of the year? I've always kind of dug that. I don't love just being somewhere all the time, like 12 months of the year. And I'm not one of those, I'll just go on vacation for 2 weeks and that's going to kind of shake my sillies out. I need to really like settle in. Like, that was the thing. Like, when we were just there, I felt like I don't have a chance to just put my feet down, take my shoes off and hang out here for a while. Right. So buying a house feels, maybe this is just, me having a feeling, but it feels like, I'm not going to be able to do anything like that.
Have you seen that Netflix show, How to Be Rich or How to Get Rich or whatever it's called with that guy Ramit? Have you seen that?
I've seen a preview for that, but I haven't seen it.
We watched it and I actually enjoyed it. I clicked on it as clickbait, the first episode, thinking, okay, here we go. But you know what?
Right.
I enjoyed it.
Really?
And he's causing a stink on Twitter because his shtick, and he's a business guy, right? But
Yeah.
his shtick is, no, I shouldn't say shtick because that's insulting. I like his philosophy, and he's like, you have to design your rich life, which is a clickbait title. But what it is don't do the things that people think you have to do to quote unquote be rich. Like, don't buy a house just because you think people think you should do that. And he's causing a storm on Twitter by putting out there the argument that actually renting can be a better option. And everyone is just, you can't say that to people. People like society, people, oh my God, no, the dream is to buy a house. It's to own a house. It's to own property. It's to own, and everyone who owns a house has an interest in people doing that because then that's how their value of their property increases. If people don't buy houses, then what they own is worth nothing. So
where's your wealth?
He's causing a big stink, and his point is very common sense. It's like, it can be good for someone and it can also be not good for someone else, but it's not an apples to oranges. It's not like rent or buy. It's, if renting affords you the life to invest and to save for retirement and to travel and to go into the S&P 500 that can have a greater return than property where you live, then you should probably consider that. And if you can own a house and still do that, then that's great. But the show is all about helping people budget at a very basic level and get out of debt and to really, what do you want out of life? And for most people, it seems it's not wait until you're 70 and then enjoy it. So
Sure. No, there's no question. Yeah.
So what does that look like? And for you, it sounds like that you've just described one aspect of your rich life.
I think so too. I've always, my therapist 7-8 years ago, she said, when I was in therapy, I'm not still in therapy 7 years later, God forbid. I have a new therapist. I just switched therapists. She said, well, you've always skipped the line. And I think that's true. I've always found an unconventional way to find wherever my kind of happy zone is. And home ownership's been no exception. I remember early on in my career, we were managing the Hartman Media Network, and we were doing podcast production for Jason Hartman, who's like a real estate kind of guru, but he's sort of an out of the box thinker. And one thing that always stuck with me was that your home is an expense. Stop treating your first house like it's an investment. Mm-hmm. No different. That's like saying, I just bought a car. What a great investment. This thing is going to make me money. It's not. It's going to cost you money because that's where you live. Your second home might be an investment if you are renting it or if you have enough money. But one of the things that he said that I liked as well, he said, there's the argument, it's renting's better than owning because you could put that money into the stock market or something. It's like, okay, that makes sense if you have additional money to put into the stock market as opposed to buying your first home. So, there's no right way to do it. Like if I walked into, TD Canada Trust and sat down with an advisor to say, what do you think at 48 years old with this income level I should do? They have a binder, that they're going to open up and they go, this is what the actuary tables say that your risk level is, and this is what our advisors would say you should do, and do that, and buy our product and buy a bank through us or buy a house through us, and you'll be fine.
What's the goal, right? Like, what should people do? Like, well, what are you trying to do? Like, what does how is buying a property afford you or not afford you? What does renting afford you? What's the ultimate? The goal isn't to buy a house or to rent a place. The goal would be the result of that, right? Like, what kind of life do you want? What kind of income do you have versus like how much time off, how much this, and for everyone it's different. So I think he just really encourages people to run the numbers and like visualize what do you want for yourself. And buying a house is, you know me, I said I'm never going to buy a house, never going to buy it, only because the Canadian market is insane and has been until, a year ago or a year and a half ago. And we came up on a situation that we were fortunate enough to do something. But I mean, I have a friend who lives in the suburbs of the GTA in Toronto, and he's like, they've been thinking about moving, their family is expanding, but he's like, it would cost us $100,000 just to move. Forget the buying of the new house and the selling, but you have the land transfer taxes and the closing costs and this and that. It's like, well, that's silly. Yeah. So buying a place, you have to, my dad said this, and I he's like, where you live is your home. And if you're buying it or renting it, you have to like living there. And the finances of buying something is you basically have to live there for like 10 years. If you're hopping around and selling it and moving, you're losing money basically. And there are exceptions and et cetera, et cetera. But like you said, buy something because you like, and you can foresee yourself living there. And if you don't, probably you shouldn't.
It all, I mean, this is talking about some universal truth,
right?
Where what we're doing is trying to enjoy what we're doing as opposed to doing everything in anticipation of a thing that's coming down the line. And for me, like I think about sometimes productivity and how much I like what people call productivity porn. Like I love the apps and the books and the pens and the methods and the thinking. Like I like thinking about being productive, and I like getting all the accoutrement that goes around productivity. But then when it's like, you got to sit down and actually do stuff, and it's like, and sometimes it feels a little bit like that in life, that you're so busy trying to arrange your nest and get everything the way that you someday would like it to be, that you forget that this is it. You're actually in the middle of it today, you know, and as you're about to go through what is still called, and probably not accurately, a midlife crisis, there's an existential point where you realize that you're kind of at the theoretical midway or beyond, which is frankly where we are. Most of us, I think I just finished a great book called Strength to Strength, where a lot of people overestimate how long they're going to live. I'm sitting there at that point going, whoa. If I'm lucky enough to get another 35 out of this one, what am I doing? Does it matter that at the end of 35 years, I can make my last mortgage payment? Yay. And then just hop into a hole in the ground and call it quits.
Well, sure. Right. I had a friend, a family friend who's since passed away, but he would always joke like, I can't afford to die.
Right.
Because he didn't have enough, well, I don't know if it was true, but money, like, how expensive funerals are and processes and things. It's like, I don't have enough money to die. I can't afford to die, which I always thought was a funny thing, but it's, you don't take it with you. And time is not the only thing that we don't get back. I mean, that's cliche, sure. But what are you doing? So I think this Ramit guy, he has this thing called a conscious spending plan, which I think a lot of people, and I myself included, I have my spreadsheets and my budget. And when we were looking into buying this, we made our Notion pages, and this is how much we earn, and these are all the expenses. And so many people in budgeting, what you described with, productivity porn, I guess. Another way to describe that is like productive procrastination, where you just read about doing something and you don't actually, do it.
Do anything.
But he's like,
Like
you have
watching exercise videos all night.
and budgeting, exactly. Budgeting, I think, is one where people make these spreadsheets, myself, like this and this and this and this, and they just feel so stressed and guilty about spending money on anything, where
Right.
you need a line in your budget that is guilt-free, right?
Yeah.
And whatever life you want to live, whether it's owning, renting, or living in the woods or whatever, where you can go out and you spend this amount of money on anything you want every single month, and you don't have to think about it, and you just know what that number is, and when you get to that number, you're done. You stop. But
That true disposable line item.
exactly. So the joke about avocado toast and whatever, but hey, if that makes you happy, and it's within that guilt-free spending line, and you don't go over it because you have allocated all these other things for these other things that are investing and it's important to you. I've been doing that for a while, but it just makes a lot of sense to me, where you don't have to think about, oh my God, Starbucks is $6. Yeah, well, if I have $1,500 this month to spend on anything, and I can make the choice that, okay, well, I want Starbucks today, and that's fine. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. I was thinking about recently, I guess I'm on this people we've produced trip, but I found that Rick Rubin, whose book I finished, I really liked, has his own podcast where he's interviewing like Will Smith and, Paul McCartney or whatever,
Nice.
and it's a really good show. And Andrew Henderson was on there, the nomad capitalist.
That rings a
was
bell.
one of his guests. I'm like, what? How did you get sandwiched into all these folks? And Andrew, so I just reached out to him and I said, congrats. I really like Rick Rubin. He said, yeah, he's a cool dude. But what he always said that I always liked was, go where you're treated best. I really liked this idea that there's a place in the world that you will be treated well for who you are, what you've accomplished, and what you want to do. That maybe, and this is another thing, I think we get locked into this sort of Canadian, bordered mindset where, this is it. Like, we got to make it work within this box that we call Canada. And maybe that's not necessarily the case. So, even within this country, we just went to Vancouver for like a week, and we felt like, yeah, it's very Canada. Like, it's uber Canada. It's kind of the best Canada's got going, it seems, in a lot of ways. But it's still very much Canada, and sometimes maybe the fit that you're looking for isn't just within how can I make this work within the guardrails that the Canadian economy and system and philosophy has set up, because there's other kind of ways of living out there in the world that he reminded me of, just seeing that. It's like, gosh, maybe it's Portugal or something. Maybe it's not here.
And I think, just to put a bow on the home ownership thing, like, it's not, if you're listening, and hi Mom, that's the only person who listened. If the decision is you buy a property and then you can't do all of those things that you just mentioned, like, don't do it. Like, that would be my unsolicited advice. Like, house poor is a real thing. We're fortunate that we're not. We went to Vancouver as well, about in June, a couple of weeks before you guys did.
Weird.
And it was really weird because we'd never been, and I don't know if you've been before, but it was just...
We'd never been either, no, first times.
And Porter flies there now, so we were like, all right. And it was just a life that affords us, I did a little bit of work from the hotel Friday morning. We went on Thursday night. Maya has a few more vacation days to use up, and we took a long weekend, went Thursday night, came back Monday night. I did some work from the hotel, super early because time change, holy cow. Friday morning, but I was done.
Wow.
Pacific time has something going for it. I don't know but by 9 a.m. I was done for the day, Pacific time, and I was like, all right, well, let's, there's something there, and then just fly back Monday night, get back into that's makes us happy, and and we're doing little trips like that, and I have a 10 and 10 to tell you about, but how was your Vancouver trip? Because that was ours, and it was amazing, and owning a house doesn't get in the way of us doing that, which was really important to us before we did it.
Yeah, that's huge. So it was half work, half fun for me. So I do quarterly meetings with my co-founder, and we were doing some consulting with someone from Vancouver. So someone who previously owned a production company that exited in the last couple of years. So I've started doing some consulting under him. And I wanted to wrap up some of those consultations in person, and he's in Vancouver. So I'm like, that's great. David, come on up. Let's go to Vancouver for like 3-4 days and we'll do some work. Because we usually travel somewhere to work anyway about 3-4 times a year.
Right.
Why not Canada? And I said to Ati, I'm like, dude, I got to go to Vancouver. If you want to go, I know you got friends out there and stuff. It's kind of a tag along worky trip, but I can take some extra days at the end of it and we can chill. So we did. We had an amazing like first couple of days of just kind of working and digging what it's like to be downtown and having a job and stuff in Vancouver. And then thereafter, it was like, let's just do touristy stuff. Let's get on like whale watching boats and drive to Whistler and and it was fantastic. You got to do the touristy stuff to get it out of your system, right? Get it all out. And then she stayed for an extra couple of days to visit with friends while I came home early. And in the end, we came to one pretty clear conclusion, and I think almost a declaration, that we're going to go live there for maybe 3 or 4 months next year. We're going to like maybe spring, early summer in that zone. We're going to go live there for like 3-4 months. Yeah. Whether it means that because we want to live there long term, I don't know. But the one thing we definitely felt like is we want to give this city the time and attention that it deserves. Like going in even for a week or 10 days, you can't know.
We loved it. Loved it. So people were so nice. We went to this really nice restaurant. It was like, we think our anniversary, because neither of us knows exactly what it is. So it's like in the beginning of July, sort of, maybe. We just pick a day to say. So we got like Prosecco that showed up in the hotel room because the happy anniversary. Like, well, this is a thing we can use other times. But anyway, I went to this restaurant and the servers were like amazing. And they were like, oh, you're in town or visiting. They were from Ontario. One person was from Peterborough. Another person from somewhere else, of course. They gave us they wrote out, like, do you have to leave? No, we got some time. Took 20 minutes. They came back, wrote out a whole list of like things to do, local stuff, like just really, really nice, really good vibe. Loved it. Not to mention the scenery. I mean, walking around with mountains in the background, like if you're from Ontario, like hello.
Yeah, I know. Did you notice like one of the phenomenons that we picked up on immediately was that, well, folks are obviously much more fit. Just like people are in good shape there. Period.
I realize why, because walking around, there's a hill. It's like San Francisco. Like everything's like this and that.
Everything's up or downhill. There's for sure. And you're constantly being pulled towards, like we went to the water every day, like one way or the other. We went across the, island, everywhere. Like we're always like going to the water. So we were walking easily 12,000 steps a day without even trying on work days. And the consultant we were working with said that even the investment bankers here, it's a bag of Lululemon, and they go in at 6 a.m., they grind till 2 p.m., and then they change their clothes in their office and they're gone. Backcountry, mountain, kayaking, something, right? So it's ingrained in the culture there to go outdoors and move.
I noticed that. I love it.
Eat well. And the kindness, like, look, the Quebec has a reputation, all right, and Montreal has a way
too.
Sure. So I'm not going to use the word rude, but you can infer. But when you go somewhere else like Vancouver, it's shocking how kind and attentive and present people are.
We had that experience less than 9 minutes after getting there. So we got there, got our bags, took the train into downtown for where the hotel was. And as we were waiting, we're on the train's 5 more minutes waiting till departure or whatever. And there's this couple out on the platform with their backpacks and stuff, and obviously tourists, and they're looking at the schedule and they're like going back and forth, and they're not sure if this is the right train, not the right train. Way over on the platform, like a good 30 feet away. This guy on the train, sitting down, like with his music, takes his headphones off, picks up his bag, stands up, walks across the platform, and says, "Hey, where are you going?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to go here, we're going to go here." And he's like, "Oh no, this is not the right train. Wait for the next one, it's coming in 10 minutes. Gets back on the train, sits down, puts his headphones back on. 2 minutes later, startled, takes his headphones back off, stands back up, walks back across the 30-foot platform and says, "You know what? I was wrong. Never mind. You want to get on this one?" get on here. It's leaving in 30 seconds to get on the train. And just out of the blue, and maybe that happens here and I don't see it. But it's just, you're right. It's different.
You're experiencing that as a tourist.
Yeah.
Right. So you're already bringing a sort of different vibe and attitude to the situation. But, the context is different. It's a palpable difference in the people. One thing that we noticed immediately was how many Iranians there were. Like everywhere. There were Persians all over the place. It was crazy. And my partner mentioned, it's like, well, this is a lot like Tehran. It's like with the mountains in the background, the climate is the same. There's fig trees and cherry trees everywhere. And she said the way the architecture is and the hills and the houses, she's like, I feel like I'm in Tehran, like back in the day when Tehran was really like the bomb. Right. So she said, I totally see why Persians would leave and live here, because it certainly reminds them of home. But the other part that really struck me, and I knew this would happen for her, was just how much I value nature. How important it is for me to be able to easily go outside and be in nature. And I'm not talking like deep woods, like I can be eaten by a bear. I'm not that guy. But definitely I would like to walk down a nice wooded path. I love to see water. Oh, hello.
Hello.
If there's mountains, bonus. So it's just, for me, it really felt like, not necessarily like this is the place where I've always belonged, but this is like, wow. It had that same Costa Rica effect that it's like, this is the kind of place where I would dig living for a while. Yeah. Like hanging out here.
Yeah. If you don't look at the rent prices, you'll love it.
It's great on paper until you look at the paper.
Same. I mean, stereotypical tourist stuff. You got to do it. But first day, rented some bikes, Stanley Park, just biking around, put your feet in the water. This way, that way, this path. I mean, it's huge. It's really, really, really nice. And talking about like that, just that lifestyle that you want. Like, we're heading up to the cottage, to the lake next week, going on Wednesday, coming back on Sunday, and just spending extra days there. You can do some work there, or not. Just have the option. And not being in I don't know what you said, bordered in one location. For us. Is really important. Just being able to kind of do work or not in different places and have different environments. There's nature in Toronto, of course, but not like that. So being able to get out and go different places, even just for a few days and, or for a couple of weeks, once a year, twice a year. That's important to us. And it's really cool when you do it.
We built a remote first company with that in mind. So that for, 10 years, that's been my career, is ensuring that we're able to do our best work from where we do our best work, or where we are even our best selves. Not to sound too woo-woo, but that's the idea, is that, my entire business fits in this nice little backpack. And I really, really like that. I also do like having a place, to set my books down. I do like having a place that I open the door and it feels like home. So, I now today, I look at things a little differently than maybe I did 10 years ago. But one thing is for sure, we're realizing how much it matters to us to be able to, within 20 minutes, be struck by how beautiful nature can be. We did the drive up to Whistler, because it's like, you got to drive to Whistler. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay. So it's an hour and a half, and it's a pretty drive, of course. So we rented a car, but what we found is that we did all the little stops, all the little lakes and all the little waterfalls and all the touristy stops on the way on that highway, knowing that they're not the deep local, wow, crazy stuff, but still, holy cow, beautiful. By the time we got to Whistler, we had a dinner reservation and we couldn't wait. We actually went into the restaurant to see if we could sit down earlier, have some oysters, and get out of Whistler and get back on the road. Mm-hmm. Because it was like, it was a resort town and there's shopping and everything. But we were just like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to have any of this. Like I want to go back to those mountains. I want to see those snow caps. I want to find another waterfall. I want to go back to that lake and get my toes in there. Yep. So we had dinner and we hightailed it back on the highway to just get back out into nature. And that was really telling. And that's the kind of people I think that we ultimately we strive to be, are the folks that would rather be out doing things in nature than shopping around looking for the perfect cargo pants.
Not going to the first Lululemon store. That's in Vancouver.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't do
flagship
that.
Or whatever.
I don't like Lululemon though. I got a problem with Lululemon. I'm a Vuori guy. I've got my yoga preferences. Okay. I don't do yoga, but I've got my preferences.
Right. Active wear for the non-yoga goers, I guess.
Amen. What does the rest of your summer look like now? We're at the midsummer, midlife in summer.
Yep. Lake, mix of lake and here. Yep. Maybe a trip up, a little road trip kind of thing, but really just making decisions, just like take it easy. I really made a concerted effort. We have a yard now, like a little back space. I go out there in the morning, do some reading, or in the afternoon. So just hanging out, enjoying the weather, some lake weekends, extended weekends, maybe a road trip in August. Haven't decided yet. What about you?
I'm going through the Canadian summer anxiety.
Yes.
Right. That it's like, and when you start, even it was
August
like May,
coming.
and we were counting weekends in May. And we're like, how many? It's like, and I miss. That's one of the things I miss living in the tropics is you don't give a flying F what time of year it is. Yep. It's raining or it's not. The end. Right. So there's no like, there's only so many weekends of summer left.
The Canadian thing is so weird, right? Like everyone in the winter is like, like when the spring summer comes, we'll definitely do X, Y, Z, and then when it does come, immediately everyone says, I'm booked through September.
Yep. And then you feel this sense of guilt because you're not doing enough, and I don't know, there's something around it. So it struck a chord when you said I'm making a concerted effort to just enjoy myself. Because I'm strategically placing books and reading glasses around, so it encouraged me to just stop whatever I'm doing and just sit down and pick up that book and read a little bit, or go outside. That's what I'm doing today. What are you doing today? I'm going outside. That's it. But it's so hard because you feel like we bought a boat.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Right? We did it. Not like a big boat, not like a boat with a motor and a big, we got a slip and all that crap. No, we bought a dinghy, like an inflatable 6-person dinghy.
I can hear the boat people being angry. That's not a boat.
That's not a boat. It's a watercraft, all right?
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, it's going to be great. There's all these little mini lakes and rivers and tributaries and stuff around here. And we'll go out and we'll just, boat around. It'll paddle around and stuff. Maybe get one of those little electric motors and stuff. Exactly. It's going to be a hoot. And I haven't inflated that boat once. Not once. Not once. So it's already the 2 best days of a boat owner's life. Like I'm already planning this thing on Facebook. I haven't even taken it out of the box.
You gotta productive procrastination, right? You gotta make a concerted effort to do it, and that's we bought an inflatable paddleboard I think 2 summers ago and love it, and we're gonna use it in the city and we never do. We leave it at the lake and paddle around and everything. But when we were looking at this place, the pictures online, we came to see it. It was late fall, mid fall, but the most exciting thing for me was that back area where I visualized this non-winter months sitting out there and just sitting out, just being outside, like you said.
Yeah.
And I do it now. Like you have to almost sound so funny, but make a decision. Like put it in your calendar. It's time to sit outside now. Right. But I do it in the mornings when I don't exercise, and then on the days I exercise, I do it in the afternoons. And it sounds so simple, but like maybe that's like my boat. You gotta use it. You gotta do it. And I'm notoriously for I don't invite people to do stuff. Like I not because I don't want to, but just it's stressful. Like that anxiety of what weekend works for you? Are you 6 Sundays from tomorrow? Are you like that? That doesn't work for me. So.
And then someone inevitably decides they're going to have a wedding. It's like, but what is this though? Because you're a sort of a philosopher moderne. we sit around and we worry about these sort of things. But there were 2 times in my life I recall when I didn't. One, obviously, childhood, right? It's summer. You're off school. Summers feel like a million years long.
Yes.
You're not hurried to do anything because you
Yes.
don't feel like you have to do anything. But there's another time when I remember when we were living at the beach. I felt a very clear sense that I was just doing enough by just existing. It's enough. That's enough. You're doing your work and you're paying your rent, but you're enjoying your life, and that's fine. That's enough. But for some reason here, I can't as easily get, like, I actually consciously have to try. Here's the analogy. It's like going to the gym. You live in a place where it's easy to go outdoors. You're in shape all the time because you're outside and you're not eating much. It's easy, right? But when you live here, for some reason, like, you got to go to the gym. Like, you got to get up and you got to schedule a time and you got to put on the clothes and you got to go into the thing and you got to put on the right music and it's a whole thing just to stay in shape, not to get in shape, just to stay in shape. Whereas other places, it's like you're just naturally going to stay in shape because of the nature of your environment. For some reason, in summertime, like, I just can't get into that groove where it's like, I'm good. I don't need to be anywhere. I'm good. I can just sit here and life is long, man. What's up with that?
I don't know. Sounds like people in Vancouver are good at habit stacking, where, like, for me, before COVID, I used to bike to work. I don't go to work anymore because I work from home. Where I would just stay in shape by biking up and down the big hill, downhill to work, uphill from home from work, which was perfect. I was saying this to a friend the other day. I used to be kind of like that, where I would be very, very much Canadian summer guy, where from school you're kind of taught, because that's the vacation time, and it's closer it gets to Labor Day. It's ending, it's coming, school's starting. There's a finite end to this thing, right?
Yeah.
But now, especially since COVID, I'm just season guy. I enjoy the seasons. And when one ends, another one begins. I know that's very like, whatever. But I used to really have angst about winter coming. Don't like winter, don't like it. Lived in the tropics for years. Don't like winter. But then I realized what I don't like is the stuff. Is like going grocery shopping or getting on the bus or waiting for the bus or shoveling. And when COVID happened and I didn't have to go outside anymore.
Winter's beautiful.
The activities are fun. The snow is beautiful.
Yeah.
You can go out whenever you want. So now I'm season. I'm still summer guy because summer is my favorite. But now I'm season guy. It's like, all right, well, summer's whatever. But then fall's nice. The leaves change color. Good for hiking, good for walks. And then winter comes and snow is beautiful. So that's kind of my philosophy of it. It's just I'm season guy. But those things that I want to do don't change. I still want to read for 30 minutes a day. I still want to do some kind of exercise. It doesn't have to be extreme. Could be just go for a walk, do a little bike ride, do a little this, a little that. I can do that in any season. So that's how I look at it.
That's smart.
Because otherwise it's angst. Like, we're into August. Oh, we're into September. But for what? What if you ask yourself, why do you feel anxious about that? Well, I asked myself, and there was no real reason. So
I hate to bang the Costa Rica gong so often today, but when I was an English teacher and I had to go in and out of classes 2, maybe 3 times a day, rainy season was hard, man, because it's like, you got to get on the bus and stand in a puddle that's 3 feet deep in order to get to an office where you're going to go into line at the hair dryer thing, the hand dryer where you put your shoes under it so you're not squeaking in class. Like, it was this whole thing for years of rainy season. And then when I started working remotely, and even more started working remotely for myself, I didn't care if it was rainy season or not. It didn't matter because you were just smart enough to not go outside at 3:30. Yeah, right. And at 7:30, it's going to be great. So I felt like the same kind of effect that you would here in winter. Like if my car is parked outside and at 7 in the morning, I have to go to get it started and scrape those windshields off. Winter really kind of blows. And by the time I get to the office, I'm exhausted and I'm peeling off all these clothes and where's my next cup of coffee? And it's pretty brutal. But here, I just watch the snow gently fall and I comment on how it's kind of perching on the leaves or on the trees. And, we go walking. It's like, it's 20 below. It's like, we better bundle up. This will be a fun walk. It's like, oh, this is going to be an interesting challenge. I wonder how much my beard will freeze today. So I think there's something to what you're obligated to do as part of what you're, deciding to do.
I think there's a lot of decision fatigue as well with Canadian summer, where, it's when everyone seems to be available, seems to be you have to do something, and deciding is exhausting. And I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes from not being organized. So I know for me, before I, like my work tasks or whatever, when I feel more anxious, more often than not, I feel like I haven't done a proper to-do list for that day or that week. And I'm feeling anxious because I feel like there's more to do. And then I look at the list, like, oh, well, no, it's just this thing and this thing. And so when I know what I'm doing, I feel, okay, it's manageable. I can do that. I feel like in summer, there's decision fatigue because you could be doing, in Canadian summer, the world's your oyster, right? You could be going to the beach. You could be doing this. You could be doing that. And if you feel like you're doing nothing, anxiety comes.
Oh yeah.
But if you just...
I'm wasting summer.
I'm wasting summer. But if you put do nothing or go out into your own yard and read for 30 minutes on the list, for me, that's like super helpful.
There's something in Quebec as well. There's always an asterisk in this province where they have moving day on July 1st. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but for some reason, everyone's lease expires at the same time in the entire province.
Sure.
So everyone moves the same day. I don't get it. I really don't. And it's right in it's in the middle of summer. Okay. So we, every year that we don't sign a new lease somewhere, we stay where we're going to stay, is actually like half your summer is given to you because you don't have to spend your summer packing, moving and unpacking and setting up. So we're in the middle of, that's what our summer has been, is getting ready, packing, moving, and then going to visit family and then going to Vancouver and then coming back. And now it's like, okay, now we're finally home. And the next thing you do is you open up that calendar and you go, oh man, there's like 6 more weeks of this. This is no good. But I'm going to try and adopt your philosophy. I'm a fall guy. I love autumn so much. The crisp air. I'm a jacket person. I'm not a shorts person. I love the leaves. I love everything about it.
You look good in shorts, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do work my legs.
Those trunks
I hate leg day, but I do it. Thank you. So, but the point is now I'm going to try this out and just go, you know what? I love the season.
I think too, an add-on to that is what we talked about before, where if you live a life where you don't have the ability to move about, and those 8 weeks of summer are your only 8 weeks of good weather, enjoyment, doing whatever, I can see the angst, right? Where it's over, kids are back to school. Well, 10 more months until I can do what I want again. Versus, okay, November, there's super cheap flights everywhere in November. November it sucks in Canada. It's like the worst weather month there is. I love to go for a week or half a week or whatever sometime in November or February to break up the winter. Somewhere where there's good weather. And if you can break up the year that way, I think you don't have that 10 more months until we have good weather again. And then in Canada, summer, sometimes it just sucks. Like it's just a cold summer. And then, oh, well, maybe next year. I think if you do break it up and you have that, as Ramit would say, that rich life or whatever you want that to be, for us breaking it up with a couple of winter trips, it does make a big difference.
The Europeans have about 1,000 years on us. When it comes to how they're scheduling their lives. They take 2 months off. At least 1 month where they're actually off work.
You ever send an email to someone in Europe in July? They auto-respond with, I've gone to the woods for 8 weeks. I'll get back to you in September.
Exactly. We have European clients, and it's bananas, but very smart.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I guess I could do that. I could just say, you know what? You give everyone the heads up, and you put all the necessary pieces in play, and you just go, I'm just not around for August.
I'm a big fan of what's the worst that could happen, and it's never that bad.
It's never that bad.
It's never that bad.
Yeah.
Like what would happen? Like people would just say, okay. Like what else would they say?
Yeah. There's not a lot of like, oh, I'm never doing business with that person because he took a vacation. It's pretty ridiculous. But at the same time, I mean, maybe there's something to it. Maybe we could just shut the whole company down for like a month. That's it. Just for August. We don't work now that we couldn't do that. Actually, it wouldn't work. But there's something to it. The Europeans know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
You could
They're
do
melting
something.
right now, but
Maybe
they
I
know
don't know
what
if you
they're
have people on different parts of the world, but you could shut down one part of the world for August, and then the other people would in February they get to shut down or something. There's
that's an idea.
some kind of flipped.
That's an idea.
You know,
Well, we'll play around with it.
we're doing I know we're gonna go here, but we're doing something called a 10 and 10, just to put a bow on the making conscious decisions to do things.
What's a 10 and 10?
A 10 and 10 is we're writing down 10 trips we want to take for the next 10 years.
Oh,
One trip a year for 10
Okay.
years.
okay.
And we're compiling this list. And the goal is to have it finished by the end of end of summer, by the end of August. We have a
Okay.
few things.
The list. Have the list finished.
Have the list finished. Yes.
Okay.
And then make
Like you each write 10, or you're
Mhm.
co-writing 10.
we're co-writing. There are some rules to this that we've concocted.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking. Go ahead.
But basically, yes. We're going to co-construct the list of 10. Each of us has one that we can just decide, regardless of the other's feelings towards it. We have one that we can do that's going to be on the list that, no veto power, basically. And the other 8, we need to agree. And basically, we want to just attend places that we really want to go. And we're going to do it in the next decade.
I love this. Did you get this from somewhere else, or did you guys just kind of like?
No,
conjure this up?
I think she just came up with it, and I was like,
this
"This
idea.
is great." So just a concerted effort of, instead of we should take a trip versus no, here's the list,
Right.
And we can switch out one per year kind of thing. So you're not like getting married to the list per se, but you can't. We only change out one a year, and
Okay.
the only kind of asterisk is we're not choosing locations. Like I want to go to France, for example. We're choosing it for an activity that we would do in that location.
Oh, like I want to go heliboarding
Exactly.
in Switzerland.
Exactly. So one for me is I want to see the Northern Lights.
Hey, you and Atty would have a great time.
So we're gonna.
You would.
Iceland is going to be on the list.
Nice. That's how you do it.
Yep.
That's how you do it. I like this a lot.
Yeah.
This is really. Have you guys already smacked down? Like I'm gaming this out. Here's our vetoes. Like they're already in there.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
What I like about us together is we're pretty open, and we love to travel, and we kind of have similar tastes.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously, there's going to be one or two that we're like, yeah, I'm not crazy about it, but I'll go. So
Yep.
we're not going to like screw the other one over, but we're pretty open about where we want to go. Each continent as well, except for Antarctica. So it will be
It's like I
represented.
want to see the cherry blossoms in Japan.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I really like that a lot.
Exactly. Or like,
I
I don't
like
know,
that a
do
lot.
the Pablo Escobar tour in Medellin or something.
I like it because you're focusing on the experience rather than the ticking it off, putting a pin in the map.
Yes. Riverboat cruise in Europe, right?
Oh man, see, I want to go on these. You're telling me about the things that I want to do. I heard the river cruises are great because you get to see the oldest parts of the city.
And as we're kind of researching, we're finding out different places. Like there's a town in France, which is like the Venice of France, where it's like in the mountains, but it's watered. It's a watered town. Looks like Venice, not French version. So it's like, we'd never heard of that before, but that looks really interesting. So a 10 and 10, that's what we're calling it.
I love this. A 10 and 10. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what your first one is, if it isn't already on the books. Yeah, you've made me think a lot. That's what these shows do. So I guess we're good. Are we going to leave it there?
I think so. So.
Yeah.
I didn't remember how we do this show, but I think this was all right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Hi, Mom.
Hello, Mom.
Here we go now, on the offense.
do it.